Okay, hi Laura. So guys, this is Laura Carroll, and we're just chatting today about health, fitness, and everything she does to hopefully make the world a healthier, happier place. So welcome, Laura. Nice to have you.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. I see your studio / lounge is in the background. I know I've seen you doing some work from there.
I like light work and everything going on here.
I'll show you mine. Mine is set up as well, so it's all cool. But yeah, so Laura, you specialize. You're a female personal trainer whose goal is to build confidence, self-esteem, and get people to move more. So you mentioned just now when we were chatting, 25 years of experience. What's happened to push you into this realm of training and being a personal trainer?
I mean, I think I was very lucky that ever since school, I always kind of knew that I wanted to help people. I always thought that I wanted to be a teacher initially, even though I wasn't very academic. I always thought maybe I wanted to be a PE teacher. And then I went and did my work experience and thought, well, that's hard work. Actually, I think I'd like to work with adults. As much as I love children, I was like the constant quick changing. I was like, no, adults. And so that's from there. I went to college and did sports therapy and sports injuries and lots of different things, my aerobics and PT, etc. And started working in a gym from the age of 17. And yeah, luckily I love it. So it's nice to do something that I'm passionate about, and I think that's kind of the secret behind you have to be passionate in this industry to kind of make it, and also to kind of keep going.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. I mean, my journey into PT wasn't the same as that, in terms of like you've been in it for a much longer period of time. Sort of immersed in it from early on. With the stuff that you've obviously studied and everything, I've always found that you struck a good balance between the personal trainer and then the group exercise. You've got that enthusiasm of a group exercise instructor, but you've got that passion to do things. This is going to sound really controversial. Do things right, like a PT.
Absolutely. I understand what you mean. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And so at the moment, obviously, we were talking just briefly about lockdown, but do you want to just give people an idea of what's happened with you during lockdown? I thought that story you said about, start of lockdown was quite an interesting one, but feel free to repeat it because I think it was really interesting.
Yeah, so obviously I work usually one-to-one, and I was bringing my classes, I was starting to reduce the size of my classes down to just one-to-one training.
And then sorry to interject there, but you run face-to-face PT as well as online as well as normal classes. How many classes were you doing?
So originally I was originally doing about 20 classes a week. Wow. And that was across lots of different gyms. But I've always been the instructor that has done a wide range of different classes. So yoga, Pilates, circuits. I think to do what I preach is in that not doing too much too often, to mix up your training, but also as well so that I can be in this long term. And so I've only ever taught one class or so a day, or had a break and then gone back and done another. I've never done back to back. But yes, over the years, I'm now 42, and my body was starting to kind of understand that actually I can't keep this going long term. So I've slowly started to reduce those down because it was starting to not make me enjoy my own training. But I love teaching. So it's been a really difficult decision. But PT, as I said, it's another thing that I do and absolutely love that. So yes, when lockdown struck, it was a bit of a shock for us all. As I said, I was in the middle of a session and trying to decide what the right thing to do. We could see that things were going to start closing, but it was making the right decision. Do we close before the government closes down, or do I keep going till the end? And then clients were starting to obviously worry and cancel. And it was a big panic. Something that I've built for 25 years, all of a sudden I felt going down the drain. And my studio is based at my mum's house, on the side of my mum's house. And it was her birthday. And I went in after a couple of sessions and I just burst into tears and I was like, I've lost everything. Happy birthday. So yeah, and then my partner as well, he's a PT as well. And so both being freelance and self-employed, I was like, wow, what are we going to do? I've never really wanted to go online because I love face-to-face so much. And yeah, just went into mad panic. I've never really drank at home. I do drink, but I don't drink at home. I've never put my glass bin out before. And yes, the first 2 weeks, I was like that person struggling to get it to the end of the drive because we drank every night. And then it got to a point where I was like, enough is enough. This is not what I preach. And I've got to pull myself together. I've got to get back into a routine and we've got to survive. And I also feel responsible for my crew because like they're obviously in despair as well. And so I decided, right, I'm going to go online. I cannot do technology. The fact that I'm even on a Zoom call is a miracle. It's took me a long time to learn all of this. But luckily, my other half, he's a lot better. So I was very fortunate there that he's been my IT specialist, and he has been fabulous because I don't know what I would have done. And yeah, it's luckily because I've taught in the area for the last 25 years, I've had fantastic support, and I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the challenge and just keeping a routine and actually doing something positive has kind of not only helped lift other people, but also lift myself as well. So it's a little bit selfish.
Yeah, but I think in essence, and this is something that I found quite similar in a sense, it's like when the chips are down and you feel like you've got to pick yourself up, you often end up lifting others in the process because your channel of lifting your spirits is to help others. So you know what I mean? So it's like you could see it as a selfish thing, or you could just see it as you doing what's necessary to keep going. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a bit of that involved. But I mean, obviously, having the experience of and the sort of network of people has proven very beneficial for you, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. I've been. It took a long time to build it up. And I've had some rough years over the years, but now I'm very grateful that, yeah, I have got the support. And I think, like we were saying before, when you're so passionate about something, other people feed off that energy. So yeah.
No, that's wicked. And so you mentioned earlier that you'd been out in Australia. And training there. Were you working in a gym there, or was that just?
Yeah. So ever since, as I said, I was younger, I've always been very, very critical of myself. I struggled at school, and I wasn't very academic, and I'm not even sporty. I cannot catch a ball. I'm dyspraxic. I'm just useless at sport. People think I just say that, but then actually when they see me play sport, they're like, oh, you are useless. And I'm like, okay, not for you to say that, but like, yeah, I am. But I was always an okay runner, and that was my thing. And as I said, I found school really stressful. But my dad, luckily, he was a great influence on me. He used to run marathons, and he said that he used to run to help stress. So stress with building a business, etc., having a family, young, blah, 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 losing his parents. And he's like, Laura, he's just like, go and run and sort your problems out whilst you run. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And he also taught me that I can, even though in the past people have told me that I can't. So he was a great kind of influence for me to actually start enjoying fitness and just do it for enjoyment. And then when I got into the industry, as I said, I've always been really hard on myself, and I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I need to be better. So I've done loads of courses, and even when I did courses, I was like, I need to do more. And the more you do, the more you realise you don't know. And then I was like, I want to go to the best country, and that's the most advanced. So at the time back then, I mean, this is a few years, it was Sweden, America, and Australia were up there leading the way. And so I was approaching 30, and I thought, if I don't go now, I'll never go. So I had my own house, I had a boyfriend, and I had my own PT business. I thought, I've just got to do it and get it out of my system. So I put my house up for rent, dumped my boyfriend. It's not the right word, is it? Dumped, but parted ways.
Parted ways, yeah.
And I thought, I've built it before, I could build it again. So yeah, off I went to Australia. Took me a long time to get work in Australia, just because people thought that I wouldn't be there for a period of time. So, and then I came across, she's like my now, like mom, my adopted mom over there, and she took me under her wing, and she gave me the chance to work in Sydney in St Martin's Square, right in the corporate industry. And yeah, I was really, really lucky. It was an environment where instructors were bouncing off each other's energy, working together, and it was an incredible experience. And I was there for a couple of years, and yeah, it was really good. Cool. I think we've now kind of leveled off with them. I think we're just as like fighting forwards in the industry. So that was a real eye opener. I think we have kind of caught up a lot. But what I did love about it was the energy of the instructors and the way everybody worked together with the physios and the osteopaths and the nutritionists.
I think that's important, and I think it's something that can get overlooked sometimes in the UK is how you can actually bounce off people. We were saying this just earlier, is sort of there is that still that sort of sense of, well, this is my PT squad, these are my crew, and I'm going to do what I know, and I'm not really, I'm very protective over them, or I'm very protective over this. And there's a train coming past. Hopefully this sounds like a steam train. So yeah, I think it was a shock for me coming into the industry. Like, I'm fairly fresh, only 7 years in, and I sort of found that initially there was a sort of want to help each other when you were at a certain level. So like, if you were a fitness coach, and you weren't PTing, you were just doing classes and stuff, there's less pressure, because I think your business revolves around the people coming to your class. And if you're part of a group of, let's say you're a Les Mills instructor or something, it's more of a community of people. Whereas with a PT, I think it's always like the lone wolf syndrome, isn't it? So, and then you're kind of very protective over that. And I always found that a bit odd, because I always think that, there's stuff that I could learn from someone that I might, there'll be something I can learn from you that I couldn't learn by myself, or vice versa and stuff. So in that sense, sharing is caring. But I don't think we're there yet. We're getting there. I think the UK is getting there.
I think, yeah, we are getting there. I think, the Midlands have a little way to go, I think. And like you said, it is sad. I was very fortunate that, being a female at the time when I was coming through the industry, there weren't many females. I mean, it's obviously changed a lot in the last few years. So I think in some sense, I didn't get it as difficult as what other trainers have had. But yeah, I think it's a shame, because I think there's so much business out there. There's so many different things that we have to offer. And sometimes actually referring out when you don't know something, if it's not your area, pre and postnatal injury, whatever it is, actually your clients respect you for it, and you get referrals for it. But yeah, that it's a brave step to make when you're new into the industry.
Huge.
Yeah
Huge. And when you've had a business here, you had a house, and then you went off to Australia and you had to rebuild everything. Did that prove to you that you could be less hard on yourself? or coming out of that?
It was, it was quite difficult to rebuild, actually. I mean, I changed areas. So I think once you build a name for yourself in an area, then it's easier. But when you brand new in a new area and you have to kind of prove yourself again, it was a real shock to my system. I was like, oh, this is actually quite hard to rebuild. So yeah, it was a bit of an eye-opener for me. I was like, oh, like I've built all this up and now I'm back here again, and actually it's not come back as quick as I thought it would. And yeah, that was tough, but at the same time a great learning experience. That I think the more we do something, the more you kind of learn from your mistakes and gain confidence that things will be all right in the end. Just stick with it.
Yeah, and so you could draw on that for the lockdown debacle, the first one. Should we say you could draw on that experience and say, actually, do you know what, I can adapt to this.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm changeable, and that's cool. I mean, so in my head, because I know you post about this a few times, and I always like your Facebook stuff. I can't always read all of it.
Yeah, they're very long. I have a lot to say.
But honestly, like your page, I think from a page perspective, because Facebook is a funny one, isn't it? Like a lot of people have moved to what I tend to do, which is load up my personal page with my brand effectively and kind of talk that way. You've kept your page and engagement and your following, and it's like, you know, if people like your page, they're going to see your stuff. Whereas I've got people that like my page and it's like, nah, you know. So I, you know, what in your mind, like it's the community that's driven that from my perspective.
Yes.
But I've always seen your posts. I've always see you get a lot of traction with it. How hard has that been for you to build up, given, you know, how much time you've spent writing those posts, let alone posting them and engaging?
I think I was having this conversation with someone this morning, actually, and they said, oh, I want to be where you are with your posts, etc., and getting the same kind of followings, etc., from it. It took years to do that. It takes a lot of time. At times, I've probably put my work before my relationships and my friends, and it can be difficult to get the balance right. But I'm so passionate about what I do tend to put that first a lot of the time, and I have to. And now I'm a lot more aware of that. I need to kind of keep my life a bit more balanced. So I've learned that over the last few years. I write what I'm passionate about. Sometimes I plan my posts for a month in advance. Sometimes I just write spare of the moment, and sometimes you might be able to tell that when I've just gone like this. But yeah, I think I listen to what clients say, and often the same kind of subjects come up time and time again, certain questions, and I think, well, they're probably not the only person thinking this, or I know I think that like that. And so that's the reasoning behind my posts, that usually different people have said different things, and I'm like, you're not alone with that. A lot of people feel that way. And yeah,
I think that's the connection thing, isn't it, though? It's about, you know, your focus has been on building that connection online. So therefore, it's no wonder that the sort of Facebook algorithm, if you want to call it that, has favored you, because people are commenting, people relate to it. They like who you are, they like what you stand for, and therefore they're going to boost that. So I think that's powerful. But for anyone listening or watching, they check out Laura's page, because it is cool. It is cool to see. And looking back through some of the posts, I know you use the post about you often write various forms of that picture of you in a hospital bed. So, you know, feel free to tell us about that, because that's, again, you know, you've uprooted yourself, you've been hard on yourself. I didn't know you were dyspraxic. That's interesting.
You've never thrown
really
your ball.
And I have a question based on that. But so you've had all these things and been hard on yourself. So you ended up in hospital. Can you explain how that happened, or what happened there?
Basically I caught meningitis, meningitis B.
Okay.
It was a while back now, so it was actually the millennium, so 2019. Basically I had like flu-like symptoms, but I was always taught to have a good work ethic. So I was in work Christmas Day. I was working in a gym, and because it was based in a hotel, it was open, and I must admit, I did feel horrendous. And obviously at the time, if I'd known about meningitis, I definitely wouldn't have gone to work. But it was, I was fit and healthy leading up to that. I probably worked too many hours. I was a manager of a gym. I used to get quite stressed from my staff. I had a few issues with different people with different personal problems and stuff, and I used to take a lot of that energy on. And I think I just worked myself into the ground. My immune system got low, and picked up meningitis, collapsed at home.
This is in the UK, right?
This is in the UK, yeah. Previously, a couple of hours before, I'd been taken to the doctor, and they just said that I had bronchitis. And my mum was like, I was carried in by my ex-boyfriend at the time, and my mum was like, she's not got bronchitis, she's ill. And collapsed at home. My sister and my mum called an ambulance, and I was rushed into Solihull Hospital, and lost consciousness. They did all the to bring me around and stuff like that.
Goodness me.
Took me to Heartlands, and I was in a coma there for a week, and then it was just learning. Once I was lucky to come around. They said that they gave 24 hours. They were like, to my mum, she's not going to make it, you need to understand. But my mum was like, she'll make it with her fitness. She's got really good fitness. And they were like, no, you're not listening. And she was like, my mum was like, she will make it, she's really fit, she'll make it. And my mum was right, luckily. But unfortunately then I had to kind of like learn to walk again, learn to kind of like bath myself, and that was tough. That was really, even though I've never been sporty, I've always had fitness, and so that was a real kind of eye-opener. And it kind of mentally, I didn't want to get up and try and walk. I didn't want to, everything was such an effort, even like taking down like cards off, kind of, I remember it being Christmas and I wanted to take my Christmas cards down off the windowsill, and it was just, I could do 2 and then I'd have to have a sit down for half an hour and then do another 2 and sit down, and it was just, mentally it was one of the toughest things I've ever been through. But I think with everything in life, you can choose to be poor me, or you can choose to be, right, well, why has this happened, and what positive can come from it? And for me, it was a real eye-opener on people come to us for health and fitness, not knowing anything, never doing anything before. And previously I would never have like understood that. Like I'd never have understood what it's like to be unfit, what it's like to start from the beginning. And that experience actually helped me understand that. And I'm actually quite grateful for it, because without that, I probably would have been like, what do you mean you don't like exercise? It was a good thing.
That's fascinating. I've never heard the full story. Like I've read about it, but I haven't like heard it from you before. And I think, it's scary to think that you had to start again. I mean, in terms of, I've never met someone who's been in a coma. So, so I'm always like curious as to how it feels when obviously going into it, you probably felt rubbish, but coming out of it, did you know what was going on? Or were you just like, what, am I dead? What's going on?
I remember coming round in the hospital in Solihull initially when they brought me around the first time, and that I remember so many doctors around me and everybody looking stressed and panicky, and a little bit of me was like, oh my God, they don't know what's wrong with me. And I was like, but then there was this woman, and she just straight my hand. She was like, everything's going to be all right. And it helped me relax. I had that person that was just like, oh, okay, I know I'm in safe hands and I've got to let them do their work. And then I must admit, the coma, I don't remember any of it. So actually, I had the easy part. It's the family that obviously had the stressful part of that. My sister was like, did you see the light? And did you see like God and things like this? And I'm like, I'm afraid I didn't, but that's only my personal experience.
Well, I didn't want to ask it that directly, but yeah.
Yeah, no, she was quite like, being brought up as Catholics as youngsters. She was like, what? So tell me. But yeah, for me, it was just like going to sleep. I was just like, I'm really ill. I'm in safe hands. I just need to sleep. And that was it for me. And then you're hearing, you can hear everything that's going on. And especially slipping into it and coming back out the other side. I don't know about the middle part of it, but yeah, I could hear everything. And I remember like everybody talking about this meningitis and talking about different subjects as they're sitting there with me. And when I did come around, my mum was like, you've had salmonella, it's fine, you're in the best place, blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking, salmonella? I've got meningitis. And I was thinking, why is she telling me? But I couldn't talk to her because I just had no energy. And
was that her just being protective of you?
Yeah, she was thought, if I heard, because at the time, meningitis back then, because there was no vaccine, it was like the COVID kind of thing. It was quite scary. I mean, it still is to a degree, but it was really, really quite a scary thing to have. And she didn't want me to freak out, but actually I already knew. But I couldn't communicate with her. So that was the frustrating thing.
Wow.
So yeah, and like they'd be like, oh, she's sleeping, and I'm like, I can hear everything.
That must be really frustrating. I mean, I don't know, maybe you didn't have the energy to be frustrated, but in a sense, like at the time, it must be like, oh, I want to say something, but I can't, like those dreams when you have the dream and you're paralyzed or something like that, and you can't move.
It was, it was a bit like that. And I mean, sometimes it was to the point that you were so exhausted that you didn't care. But at other times, if somebody did say something, you'd be like, so now, like, God forbid if I'm ever around anybody sick or something, that's the one thing that I'm very to talk to somebody, to kind of communicate with somebody, because even with the doctors, they were incredible, they saved my life, but they just grabbed my arm and put an injection in it. But once I started to come around, the drugs, I was like, they're trying to kill me. And like I went a bit like doolally with the drugs. And I remember like a guy stroking my feet, and I was shouting, pervert, get off me. I looked an absolute state, so I needed to get over myself. But he was basically testing the reflexes on my feet. And I was like, why didn't you just say that? And then I'd have been all right.
Yeah. But it's all happening so fast, and they're trying to help, aren't they? So, I think that is one thing. You do need that team of people, and then that one person to just kind of reassure you that actually, no, he's not doing anything untoward. He's just checking out your toes, Wow. Okay. So that's pretty hectic. I mean, in terms of the recovery process, again, being a trainer, being fit, what was that like? Because I've had an injury this year, which has put me out for pretty much most of the year. And it's nowhere near what you had, but it's frustrating because you sort of want to, I can't run, I can't sit on a bike, I can't do anything like that. And I know how frustrating that is. What's it like to have to recover from something where you have to actually teach yourself how to walk?
Yeah, I mean, that was, as I said, mentally really, really, really difficult, a really dark place. And luckily I had a positive influences around me saying, yes, you can, Laura, yes, we are. We're just going to walk to that lamppost, or we're just going to walk up and down the landing of the house or whatever. And I had people pushing me, and I didn't want to a lot of the time, but I knew how important it was. I think, I mean, in the early days when you're so poorly, you just don't care. But actually you having your injury, and it's that when you're used to have been at this stage, trying to get to this stage, that's really frustrating. And actually, when you're so close but so far, that's the worst part of it. But yeah, mentally, it was dark. I don't think that I suffer from depression. I don't. Do we all to some degree? Yes, but I personally don't think I luckily haven't had that. But that experience and grief have been the two things that I've come as close to it as I think I could come to it, because mentally trying to get past and keep pushing when you're getting knocked down. And some days, like with fitness, you do great, and then other days you go back 2 steps. It's
Well, I think in that sense, like I've been severely overweight and lost the weight and stuff, and at the time, you're kind of in it and you're just kind of living in it, and you accept things for what they are. And you could appear, if I'd said like, right, okay, I'm going to the doctor because I feel so low, and I just constantly eating and stuff, the doctor probably would have turned around and said, oh, you're depressed, and take these tablets and they'll help you feel better, and that kind of thing. And I'm not knocking doctors for what they do, but in that sense, you can label yourself very easily. But I didn't feel like, I'm not a depressive person personally. I've had my moments in life, as do we all, but I think it's something that once you've experienced, you can kind of understand it a bit better. And that therefore relates. But I know people who have depression who suffer with it long term, and it's a very different animal to sort of like a temporary situation. Had you not had that fight in you, do you think that you would have bounced back, because you've been through a lot already to that point? I mean, how old were you at that point?
So I was 20. I was just turning 21.
Okay.
It was. My family my mom, my dad, and my sister have always been very yes, we can. So I think the top 5 people that you surround yourself with. I can't remember who quoted that. I should do. Yeah. That's my favourite quotes.
I'm with you on that.
It's that you become, they say, and I think yes, when you've had knocks in life, you've got a choice to stand up or go down, but also it helps to have people around you that do help pick you back up again. So I've been very fortunate to have those people around me, and now later on in life, I definitely draw off different experiences in life to keep myself mentally strong and kind of fighting forwards.
And so with the message you put out to people and the job that you do, I mean, in terms of the recovery process, you've been through a lot. How much did diet and exercise come into your recovery? Because that's an interesting one for me from a health standpoint. I'm always interested to hear, what did you do diet wise? Obviously exercise is exercise, but diet wise, what did you do to help bounce back?
I mean, coming out of meningitis, the doctor said that hands down was the thing that saved me. They've said the fact that I was so fit, that was the thing that saved my life. And I still remember him saying that, and it's always in the back of my head on days that I don't want to get up and go to the gym. I mean, people find that hard, that us PTs get days like that. They're like, what? No, don't tell lies. We do. We're humans.
Yeah.
We don't want to yesterday. In the rain. We don't want to sometimes. But
I procrastinated for about. Yeah, I procrastinated for an hour yesterday before training.
Yeah, totally.
I wonder
we all do that.
If I could just dig up the garden for a second, that'll be fun.
I'm not. I clean the house, and I'm like, I've already done it, but I'll pull out a cupboard and make it messy find it again. So yeah, we all. So, but in the back of my head, I'm like, it's helped me survive before, and so now it's really important. So back when in the day I was vegetarian, and I'm not knocking vegetarian at all, but for me I was living on carbs. I didn't have any protein. I didn't like vegetables. I was a terrible vegetarian, and I did it for 15 years, and I was horrendous. And so I was unhealthy, and actually having life kind of give you that stumble block. Yes, I had my fitness, but my nutrition was, I was always brought up on good food in the sense of quality of different foods. Like I wouldn't have, as a child, I was brought up on meat and good quality meat. But yeah, it did definitely make me look at my diet. I also loved sugar. I'm still partial to a bit of sugar, and that's still an ongoing fight. But I've, over the years, how I've improved, drastic, it was totally different. So yeah, I now eat vegetables, which is a really weird thing for a PT to say. But I had to go through the stages of like hiding it in a smoothie, hiding it, then moving on from a smoothie to cottage pie, like what you do with a child, like. And now I actually, and then raw veg, and now I eat cooked veg. I'm like, ta-da! So
was that, so it was a gradual process for you, kind of building up, and did you turn back to meat straight after, or was it sort of a conscious thing, like, right, I'm gonna fix this up?
No, I didn't turn back to meat until a few years later, and it wasn't until I was actually in Australia, and somebody put meat in front of me because they didn't know I was veggie, and we were on a boat, and they were like, how do you want your steak done, Nora? And I was like, oh my God. And my mum had always brought me up to eat whatever's put in front of me. So I was like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, really well done, like cremate it. Like,
yeah.
My friend was like, don't do it. And then I was like eating tiny bits, but it took, like, people could smell it off me for 2 weeks. Like, it felt like it was stuck here, because your body, especially red meat in particular, like if you've not eaten it for 15 years, it was a real shock to my system. But the changing point for me was, that didn't taste too bad, even though it was cremated. And so actually I told myself that I didn't like the taste of it. And B, both of my parents had a vitamin B deficiency, and that's hereditary. And my dad was very poorly at the time, and my nan, like, their hands were like coming in like claws because of their deficiency. And although yes, you can get it from lots of fabulous different foods, meat is one of the best things for the vitamin B. So I'm not a good enough cook I haven't got enough patience to spend time doing different vegetarian dishes. Sorry, going back to that question, I started eating fish first, around about 2021, coming out of that, and then I moved to meat. So
yeah, that's so simple. I mean, I was vegan for a while, and I transitioned similar sort of back to eating meat and stuff. And not for anything other than I realized that actually there was it was an interesting community of people, and a lot of people that were doing it for the rights reasons, sort of the animal rights and how they saw things. But I kind of felt like there were a lot of unhealthy people in that realm as well. I think you can be a vegan and be very unhealthy. You can be vegetarian and be very unhealthy.
Yes.
And I think that it's hard to quantify that as a coach with people when people come and say, oh, have you watched Game Changers, or have you watched these documentaries? I'm like, yeah. And then, we're going to become vegan for like a month. I'm like, yeah, just don't do it because you watched a movie. Do it because, I made that mistake. I kind of watched a few movies. I was like, right, that's it. I'm going to become a vegan. We're going to save the planet. And then I went to like a convention with vegans, and there was all sorts of like contradictions going in the room, and it was like, I think we're doing the right thing, but I feel like we're all very angry about it. You know what I mean? And I'm not knocking them at all, but I kind of felt like actually it was an interesting, I got more congratulations from people when they found I was eating meat again, and more of like a welcome back to the meat eating community, as it were, then that was the warmest feeling I'd had from people for a long time. I don't know why that was, but anyway.
I think with that, I think nobody likes to be preached to. And I think whether you go down the religion or vegan or whatever it is, CrossFit, like, I think people become so passionate about something that they're like, you must do this, you must do that, but nobody likes to be told what to do. And actually, I've just done Tony Robbins' seminar thing, and they eat meat, but they were talking about kind of how it's made, blah, 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 blah. And actually, it was quite an eye-opening, like, just go for the right sources, make sure it's humane, kind of like, and actually that was more of an eye-opener, because I even questioned with that. I was like, shall I go veggie again after watching the video? But then I was like, no, like what you've said, it's doing a few more vegetarian days, but still keeping the meat there. And it's just a personal decision, isn't it? It's
yeah, I'm a very much like an all or nothing kind of person. And so it strikes me from what you're saying is you like to gradually move in a direction, let's say, whereas I'm kind of like, you know, when I started losing weight, I was like, right, 1 week I was eating pizza, drinking Coke, beer, smoking, and then like a week later I'd given everything up and I was eating vegetables. You know, it was like, and you know, I was in bed for like 3 days with a migraine, but because you know your body's just like, what the hell have you done to us? And I think, you know, I'm a bit like that. I'm learning to be a bit more gradual with things. But yeah, you know, give me a 1,000 burpees to do and I'll be like, yes, let's do them. And then the injury teaches you actually, I think you need to build back up to that. So no, it's interesting. I mean, I had a question based on your dyspraxia. And this is only coming from someone, I've coached people who were dyspraxic. And it wasn't for a very long period of time. More so because of confidence, really. The people that I worked with, it was in a commercial gym environment and they were there for like 3 sessions. And then I think they kind of gave up because they just felt like, what's the point? I'm having to relearn everything every day. What is that like? Because it's easy to see it, but it's not so easy to understand what that feels like.
It's probably my biggest frustration in life with myself now. So I'm dyslexic and dyspraxic, and it's the one thing that sometimes I feel like it holds me back. Now it doesn't, of course it doesn't, because look at all these celebrities that are like Richard Branson and stuff is dyslexic, and I don't know about dyspraxic, but for a long time I let that hold me back. But over the years, I've learned that yes, I can file, but I just have to do it differently to everybody else. So I have to write down even now I have to write down A, B, C, D down to Z. I can't just pick out kind of, and it's the same with playing sports. I know what I'm good at and what needs work, but I can do, like, I was really surprised myself, I can catch a ball, and I wish I was given that confidence as a child to do it, but it just takes you longer to do these things, and it's frustrating process.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, so I've like I said, helped a few people who've had who are dyspraxic and who've had sessions, and it's like I'm a fairly patient person, so it doesn't bother me. We'll go over everything. But in terms of actually coaching people, so you know, you're coaching people, and your classes, you know, when they were face to face, hopefully going to go back to that sometime soon. With that, you know, you're coaching people with overhead squats. I've seen you've got people doing overhead lunges, you've got people doing handstands, I think bear crawls, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean, how do you get your head around training those people to do that? I think that's really cool. I didn't know that about you. It's just fascinating.
And I think that's where my classes always look. If you look in my class, like most classes that you'll look into, they're very neat. Everybody's going up, everybody's going down, and everybody's doing the same thing. Whereas I think as a personal trainer and as somebody that's struggled with different movements or dyspraxia or whatever, obviously we're all different and there's no one exercise that suits every individual. And so for me, my classes, they had to be like, this is the foundation move. We're going to work, let's say, the chest or the back or whatever. And some of you can use dumbbells. Some of you can do, let's take a squat, a sumo squat. Some of you can take it into a goblet squat. Those that I know that are experienced can take it overhead, blah, 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 if you've got the range. And yeah, I wanted everybody to do what suits their body without getting carried along with ego in a class environment. And I feel that kind of I knew my crew well enough to do that, and people trusted me to let them do that. Teaching it, obviously it's a little bit chaotic, and the only reason that I've come away from bigger clubs now is that there's too many for me personally in a studio. So now I will no longer teach a huge number of people. So I prefer to teach a smaller group of people. So yeah, I think the more you practice something, the better you become. Like a few years back, well, when I started in the industry, my boss said, you have to teach step. Now for me, that's an absolute nightmare. My feet are like left, right, and I was just like, there's no way in a million years can I teach a step class. Like, please don't do this to me. I went to a step class and the instructor stopped the step class and came over to me and went, you're doing it all wrong, try this move, blah blah blah. And I was mortified. I was like, oh my god, I've got to teach this. And actually doing that step class, it took me years to master it, and it's kind of taught me with my dyspraxia that I can actually do anything. Whereas before I used to be like, I can't catch a ball, so I'm not going to catch a ball. Whereas actually learning to teach a step class, I can do it, but it just takes time. And it's the same with everything going on in class and stuff. It's just experience.
It's a consideration. I mean, like, I would never do a combat class or a step class. And I remember when I was in the process of losing weight, I was on a program, and they had like this sort of like, it was like a boxing fitness thing, and you had to follow along with like jab, right, cross, jump, sprawl. And I for the first 30 minutes I was like, I just stood there. I didn't sweat, I didn't do anything because I was just so confused. So yeah, I mean, hats off to you for learning that, because I'm a patient person, but I wouldn't be able to be that patient. I'm just like, do you know what, burpees will do.
Yeah, I think just back then, I had a boss that was just like, you're just doing it, and I was like, oh my god. But actually it's the best thing. I thanked him like a couple of years ago, actually. I was like, thank you for making me do that, because I never believed I could, and actually it's given me confidence in so many other things. And yeah, that's
awesome. I mean, in terms of, so like, let's say you had someone who was looking to change their life right now, and they're listening to this and they're feeling a little bit lost. What would you be your bit of advice to them if they were
to find something that they enjoy? Although as a personal trainer, I feel like there's a certain way to train that will get you certain results quicker and better and safer, etc. I think this is where sometimes I can be different as a class instructor, that if somebody enjoys movement, do that movement. So yes, you burn more calories doing weights than you will dancing around in a studio, like you said, especially if you can't get the choreography. But if you enjoy dancing, you're going to do it a lot more than you are lifting weights if you don't enjoy lifting the weights. Cool. Yeah, find something that you enjoy, and also different environments make a huge difference. And this is what I always say to my crew: anybody that walks into any of my classes, don't just because I'm teaching this way doesn't mean that we all teach this way. So if you don't enjoy my class, please, 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 please try other classes that are the same. So not every circuit class is the same. Not every step is the same. It depends on the music. It depends on the instructor's personality. It's so many different things, and we're all so different, that try a variety of things and find something that you do enjoy, whether it be walking outside or lifting.
Yeah, no, I think that's sound advice. Like variety and doing something you enjoy is awesome. If you were talking, let's say someone who's listening who's a personal trainer coming up, it's probably not an industry that people are going to want to jump headfirst into at the moment because of the nature of being self-employed, maybe, or just the way gyms are being opened and closed all the time. What would you say to them about your journey, especially into an online realm? What bit of advice would you give them?
I think that if you know, hand on heart, you're so passionate that you will make anything work. So I think that goes for whatever industry people go into. If you're going in because you like to work out yourself and you want to spend all day in a gym, then it's going to be a challenging industry for you. But if you want to help people, if you want to make a difference, if you're really passionate about, and you're going to come up against obstacles all the way through, it's going to be long hours, it's going to be probably poor pay initially, it's hard to get out there initially, but you just need to keep fighting through the walls and you'll get there, and it'll be worth it through the other side.
So similar to the advice that, like it's a gradual process and you just got to stay committed to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also as well, like you said, you've had mentors, etc. over the years. And I think I wish I had that starting out in the industry. I have made so many mistakes. I've had to, as we all make mistakes, but over the years, I've charged too little for my time. I've not charged cancellation fees. There's so much that I made mistakes for, or that I think, you've got to value what you do. You've got to, I've made mistakes. I'd get a mentor, and I think that would be if I was to go back, that's something that I would 100% do. And actually now, like my other half is like, why do you help? Or like there's up and newcomer people in the industry. He's like, you don't get anything out of that. But I'm like, I struggled so much starting in this industry. I didn't have a mentor until I had that boss that was like, you're doing this and you're doing that. And actually going to Australia and everybody working with one another. I would hope, and I often do have, like in lockdown, I've had 5 or so instructors contact me going, what shall I do? And I'm like, well, have you thought about this, blah, 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 blah. And I think as a community of personal trainers, I think the more we help each other, the more we'll all flourish ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that you've made there. I think that's the reason I wanted to do these interviews and get people chatting, is because there's always something you're going to learn from someone. There was a book that I read back in, like when I moved to the UK, and I was like living in a room. I was just like the bottom of bottom, and I was thinking, how the hell am I going to make anything work? And I read this book called The Celestine Prophecy, which some people will hear of, some people won't. And it's this guy's journey to find this manuscript, and every person he meets along his way has an influence into how he finds the manuscript. So it's a bit woo-woo and it's a bit out there, but it really is, like, I took a lot from that, thinking to myself, well, actually, every single person you meet, good or bad, will have an influence in how your future plays out, because you can learn something from them if you're open to it. And I think that's the key. I mean, what you said about a mentor, that nowadays is becoming more of a thing. And I see a lot of mentors being born out of this COVID and lockdown situation. So, yeah, I mean, I get that completely. I think not to sound, I'm all for helping people, and I'm all for helping as many people as possible. But you can't be that person starting small, because being a generalist, you open yourself up to being vulnerable from a what's the word I'm looking for? You end up catering to everyone else, and actually, if you focus on being specific and being a bit more, let's say, exclusive is probably the wrong word, but it gives you so much more back as a coach to then keep your fires burning.
Absolutely.
And I think, what you've said there about, being sort of having that exposure, having that experience. I've always noticed your classes used to be booked up. I mean, people used to run out of the class halfway to book a class for the next week so that they knew that they were going to get into your class. That's the kind of thing that is powerful, because people see that and they're drawn to that. If you went to an empty restaurant, you wouldn't have a great experience. But you go to a busy restaurant, there's a different vibe, there's a different energy. And it's kind of like that with PTs. So in that sense, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I think what you've done is fantastic, because you've created a solution for yourself all the way along, all the way along your journey.
I think it's about creating a community, and I think that's probably the key thing that I probably do that I didn't set out to do, but actually I look back and I think, well, that's what I do. And it was something that every class of mine has started with 2 or 3 people. Like, I haven't started out with full classes. I haven't been just lucky to take over a busy class. They've all been at funny times, and I've started with a few. And it's usually taken 12 months, I would say, to make a difference. But I'm really passionate about finding out when their birthday is, finding out a little bit about them. And it's not me being nosy, and it's not me being like, oh, well, this will keep them coming back. I am genuinely interested. And like, I organise different things outside of the class. So especially when I was working in gyms, like, the pay was just like, there wasn't the reason why I did it. It was, I used to feed energy from that, and I did it for my own kind of purposes of energy. And I used to organise wolf runs and nights out and stuff. And the first few, I used to have 3 or 4 people, and I used to be so embarrassed saying it, because I thought, I bet they think I'm desperate for friends. But but sometimes it was like, my friends didn't want to do a wolf run, or my friends didn't want to do, and I was just like, we're like-minded people. Why not go and do these things? And then it suddenly became actually, this builds a community, and this kind of builds a fitness family. And I think that's been the secret for me. But like what you said, find your personality, because there's no point trying to copy somebody else. That sometimes you can walk into a class or a PT that's trying so hard to be somebody else, or write very similar posts to somebody else. And if that's not your personality, it comes across as fake, and people can see through it. So you've got to find your own little quirkiness and roll with it.
Play to your strengths. Play to your strengths 100%. I mean, I think that's the nail on the head for me in terms of like a PT side of things, because a lot of clients might just sit back and go, oh, you know what, I've got a session with Laura today, I'm just going to show up, and not give much thought as to, how much you may have prepared for the session. And I'm not knocking clients, but, how much you've had to put into it. And sometimes on the fly, try and change something, because there's just what you had in your head doesn't work. And it's like, oh my gosh. So I think that's really key. I mean, are you okay for time, by the way?
Yes.
Because I think that's a really interesting point, and it's something that I certainly learned probably about 3 or 4 years in, maybe even less than that. I learned about the community aspect of it, but I went away from that and forgot about it. And I think it's come back round because of COVID and everything like that. It forced me to sit back and go, actually, in my business, what am I doing to make sure people feel like they belong to something? Because that sense of belonging is powerful. And if you can find what drives you, so for you, it sounds like you've mentioned birthdays a couple of times in the chat, like your mum's birthday and stuff. That's obviously something to think about. And it's something that I'm terrible with. I hand on heart, I'm like, it's always the thing I forget. And then I'm like, oh, so what did you do this week? Oh yeah, it was my birthday on Friday. I'm like, oh,
I mean, I still do that, but
Yeah.
I try to write it in my diary, or I try to, like, if I see something up and come in, I'll give myself a reminder of it. So
I'm just owning the mistake now, because I've got a group, and it was my birthday a while ago, and everyone is like, because they were friends on Facebook, they're all like, happy birthday in the group, and I'm like, oh, thanks guys. And then yesterday it was someone's birthday, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to face this one. So I messaged the group and I was like, guys, look, I'm so bad at writing down dates of birth. Please sort of direct message me your date of birth, but happy birthday to so and so. Oh dear, because I know there's going to be people that I'll have missed and stuff. But I think that's cool, and honesty and sort of sense of belonging is a powerful tool in helping people change. And I think that comes back to that Facebook thing I was saying. It's like, that's where your posts come from. I know you've done the wolf run for ages. Hopefully things can return to some sort of normal in 2021. By the time people are listening to it or listening to this, it is 2021. So hopefully we're all singing and dancing in the streets again. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what you're building online, so it's the last sort of thing I wanted to ask you about. You're building online classes. How does that all work? Because I'm sure there are people out there that might come across this and go, do you know what? I want to speak to Laura and see how I can contact her. So tell me about that.
So basically, I teach a couple of mornings a week, weights classes. A lot of people mentioned that there was a lot of HIIT classes going on, but they wanted something a little bit different. And so I decided to do a weights class, but basically whatever piece of equipment people have got, whether it be a kettle, I mean, the tool doesn't matter. Sometimes people get very hung up on about, I haven't got a kettlebell, so I can't take part, or I haven't got a barbell. The tool doesn't matter. So some of my crew use hand weights, some of them kettlebells, sandbags, lots of different tools. And some of them just use their body weight. So I've always give lots of different options. Okay. And there's beginners options, advanced options. I've been teaching a long time where I can be adaptable. And yeah, I do 45-minute classes in the morning. I tend to run them for the month. And then I also run a little accountability group, usually on Facebook. And then each week in there, I usually like, who's up for the class tomorrow? And if I notice that somebody hasn't been on for a while, I'll send them a message and say, oh, we've missed you, like what are you up to? Also, yeah, if it's someone's birthday, I'll make a bit of a song and dance, go, right, we're going to do some birthday burpees or whatever it is, just to kind of feel special. And then also, like, if there's anything they're uncomfortable in class, I'll do like demos in this private group as well, like how to do a deadlift or how to do some ability work, etc., to balance out our training. And yeah, so it's creating that community.
Okay, that's awesome. That's great. And are you continuing with one-to-one stuff?
Yes.
As it stands?
Yeah, so again, all online at the minute. I must admit, I can't wait to get back to face-to-face. But yes, the online classes, because I've come away from the clubs at the minute. Well, I say at the minute, I'm not going to go back to the clubs. So at the minute, they're carrying on permanently. Then as soon as I've allowed to do face-to-face in a studio again, I'll go back to live one-to-ones.
Okay, that's great. That sounds really good. And then, you know, if people were listening and thinking, you know, oh yeah, I'm going to go contact Laura. Is there a specific person that you work with in terms of, you know, only females or anything like that? Or are you fairly open to having conversations with people?
Yeah, anybody. I mean, predominantly I tend to train females, and the reason for that is that I feel that I understand the majority, and all my courses tend to be, like my latest course that I've just signed up for is a women's health course, which is going to be endometriosis and periods and menopause and all of that stuff. So because it's something that I'm interested in, yes, I can do bodybuilding, or I can do bodybuilding, let's say muscle increase, etc. But it's not an area that I would study enough, and I will always let a client know that pre and postnatal or menopause or general fitness is my area, and well-being and confidence. But if you're looking to build muscle, then there's a lot of better trainers out there that can do that. for you. So as a whole, I always say women, but I do train some of my women, their husbands, and on my online classes, that's a mix of male and female.
Okay.
So, but yeah, one-to-one tends to be more women.
I think that's fantastic, and I think obviously, you know, you've said a couple of times about self-esteem and building that up for people. I think in terms of someone who's more qualified in that area, I don't think you could come across anybody more qualified than yourself at the moment, from what I've heard. You've had your knocks, you've got things that hold you back, and you've got battles like everyone else. But you kind of showed that you can overcome those with everything that you've gone through. So massive kudos to you for that. And I honestly, I foresee that this interview thing will continue. So hopefully we'll get through the first 10 and then kick things off for a second series. So you're welcome to come back and chat again if you want.
I've really enjoyed it. I've been so nervous about doing this because I'm so used to moving and standing up. I never sit down, so I was just fidgety here.
If it weren't for lockdown,
put me at ease.
No, that's great. I mean, I think, you know, I've always been able to chat to people, and people have been fairly open with me in general and in life. I think that comes from being a personal trainer as well.
Yeah. Not always, because not all trainers are like that. So that's your kind of trait. I think you do make people feel very comfortable.
I hope so. And I'm glad that you got to share some of your story, because there'll be lots of things in there that people that are in your crew will hear, and they'll go, oh my gosh, you know, maybe I never knew that, or maybe that's interesting, and it just gets people to know you better. So hopefully that helps. And look, keep doing what you're doing, keep pushing forwards, and you know, hopefully we'll have you back here in a face-to-face element, being interviewed rather. You can do some bear crawls and burpees and stuff up and down just to keep you moving next time. But yeah,
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you, Brendan.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Laura. Take care.
Thank you.